Hey guys, so for today's video, I'm going to be giving you a 9-month update on the 5-gallon Marineland portrait aquarium. But before this video starts, I thought it'd be fun to start each video with a fish joke or fish pun. So get ready for this. Why do fish swim in schools? Because they can't walk. Well, here is the tank 9 months later. I swear it's not as bad as it looks. It's actually a lot worse. Obviously, there's quite a bit of algae in here. There's a bunch of this kind of string hair algae all over the plant and pretty much everything in this tank. There's also quite a bit of algae on the glass, but that's not too big of a concern. So the reason why I think the algae in this tank is so bad is just because the white cloud minnows that I added a few months back, I only added 4, but they definitely multiplied quite a bit, and there's a whole bunch of babies in here, and just the excess nutrients from feeding has definitely contributed to the algae growth. Also, this tank sits right next to a window, which I usually leave open, so that definitely contributes to the algae as well. I've tried a few different methods in trying to get rid of this algae. One of the first methods that I used is this Elodia right here. I just added a few stems of that from the 36-gallon aquarium, and my hope in that was I was hoping the Elodia would absorb a lot of the excess nutrients in the water column, but obviously that didn't work. Then what I did is I tried to increase the flow, which it is off right now just because it's a little bit loud because I increased the flow so much. So then I went to my last resort, which you can see is right back there. There's a Siamese algae eater. So I went ahead and went to the pet store and picked up 2 Siamese algae eaters, and I put them both in here, and I think there's just a little bit too much algae for these guys to handle, and I ended up moving one back to the 36-gallon aquarium, but I couldn't catch this guy because he just kept hiding. So maybe we'll do that today and try and get this guy out of the tank. But like I said, the Siamese algae eaters didn't really help too much. They definitely cleaned up some of the plants a little bit, but these big clumps of algae right here, they haven't really touched. It's definitely a lot of algae for them to consume. The one thing that I really haven't tried, which I probably should, and is probably the main reason why there's so much algae in this tank, is limiting this light. I have it on from 4 o'clock to 9, so 5 hours, but it does get a ton of natural sunlight from this window from about 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, which definitely isn't the best. Also, this tank has kind of just been on the back burner because I've been taking care of my other tanks. So pro tip, if you want to have a nice looking aquarium, only get 1 and not 5. But other than the algae problems, everything in the tank seems to be doing just fine. The plants don't even seem to be too bothered by the algae in the tank. And like I mentioned, the white cloud minnows did breed. They bred like the very first day that I put them in here, and there are quite a few in here. A lot of them did end up dying. I think the parents actually ate them or got sucked back into the filter, but that's pretty cool. Now I have a whole bunch of white cloud minnows that I have no idea what to do with. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and clean this tank up and get it looking a little bit better than what it looks like right now. So roll the time lapse. Well guys, you're never gonna believe what I just found back here in the other compartment. I found some fish. Not really sure how they got back here. So I'm gonna go and get a net and see if I can scoop these guys out. All right, mission success. I got both fish out of here, and just kidding. While I was editing this video, I actually realized there was another fish that was back there. You can see him right there. So I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm gonna try and catch this guy out of the tank. So back to the video. Hopefully that won't happen again. and hopefully they'll be perfectly fine in here. So now that I got the tank nice and cleaned up and actually got the fish from out of that back compartment right there, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and catch that Siamese algae eater that I have in here. He is right back there just hiding in the plant, and I'm gonna go and get the net and hopefully try and catch him. So the whole reason why I got those two Siamese algae eaters, which one is still over there in the Marineland tank, and I did end up catching one and putting it in here. And the whole reason why I put it in here is because as soon as the one that I used to have in here jumped out and died, all of this algae just started to grow on all of the plants towards the surface. And it doesn't necessarily hurt anything. I just don't really like it because it just looks a little bit ugly in my opinion. And I definitely don't want it to get out of control like it did in the 5-gallon tank. Look who decided to show up, the Siamese algae eater that I caught. But he's doing good in here. You may notice in this tank as well, there's some white cloud minnows in here. And the reason why there are white cloud minnows in here are obviously because I put them in here, but because in the little nano Easter Island moss ball tank thing that I set up last week, I took them out because you can see they're just kind of pooping everywhere and it didn't look really nice. And that's why there are white cloud minnows in this tank. And the moss ball that I tore up started to get a little bit pale and brown. So I think I was overexposing it with this light. So I reduced the light to only around 4 hours. And I put in this hornwort. I put a whole bunch of it up here to hopefully diffuse some of the light and absorb some of the excess nutrients in this tank since it's so small. And I honestly have no idea why I'm talking about this tank and this tank, because what we were originally talking about was this tank. So like I said, I got it nice and cleaned up. You can actually see in the tank a little bit better, but there's definitely still a lot of algae in this tank, as you can tell. I don't think I'm ever gonna get rid of the algae in this tank. And honestly, my whole goal with this tank was to get a pea puffer in here, but I just never got the chance to get one. So sadly, I don't think I'm ever gonna get a pea puffer for this tank. Maybe in the future, I'll set up a new tank just for a pea puffer, and I'll actually end up putting a pea puffer in that tank. But this is the Marineland 5-gallon portrait aquarium 9 months after I set it up. Well guys, that's it for today's video. I hope that joke at the beginning wasn't too cringy, and I hope you didn't unsubscribe. But if you do have any more fish jokes, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next video.